Okay, did you guys hear about this weird story about a man that committed a murder while he appeared to be on a YouTube live stream? I read about this story earlier this week, and while at first I thought it was a kind of bizarre alibi for a crime, it actually turned out to be its own undoing. So let's take a look at one of the strangest crimes to ever come out of Ireland in recent times. Hi everyone, welcome back to 5 Seconds to Sundown. I'm your host Gemma, and if you're new here, this is where I talk about crime and justice, all things dark history, and the occasional spooky ghost story. Thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which cases you'd like me to look into next. Now, quick trigger warning, as always. Today's episode discusses murder, violence, and criminal behaviour, including violence against women. So if that's something that you're not up to today, this might be a good video to skip. There's an idea of the perfect crime. It's a crime so clean, so carefully executed, that no one ever gets caught. But even in fiction, the perfect crime never really exists. Because in every single one of those stories, no matter how clever the plan is, there's always a fatal flaw that brings the whole case down like a house of cards. The concept of the perfect crime is not new. Writers like Agatha Christie and Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the creator of Sherlock Holmes, built entire stories around the perfect crime involving locked rooms, unbreakable alibis, crimes that seem completely impossible to solve. Now, in reality, most crimes aren't perfect, and most offenders aren't masterminds. They're just human beings who make assumptions about how the world works, and more importantly, how detectives work. So with that in mind, let's take a look at today's case. In December 2022, thousands of people were sitting at home scrolling through YouTube, watching what they thought looked like a completely normal gaming live stream. It featured a man in a Santa hat playing video games, and the live stream was called the Violent Night Christmas Live Gaming Stream, and it was played on Stephen McCullagh's YouTube channel, which had at the time over 30,000 followers. The live stream played between 6 p.m. and midnight on Sunday, 18th of December 2022. But what he was actually doing was creating a whole new blueprint for modern murder. One that was in some ways unique, but not at all foolproof. In the live stream, he was drinking, laughing, and talking to his live audience. He was playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City and also Robot Wars. At one point, he says, "I'm not leaving the house tonight." But here's the thing, that live stream wasn't live. It had been recorded days earlier. And while that video played, while people were watching, commenting, completely unaware, that same man, that same live streamer, was 17 miles away from his home, killing his girlfriend. And her name was Natalie McNally. She was 32 years old, and tragically, she was also 15 weeks pregnant. Natalie was described as kind and generous. From a young age, she had lived with type 1 diabetes. But that didn't stop her from going out in the world and living as an independent woman. Reports say she had 2 cats, as well as a German Shepherd called River. Natalie met Stephen McCullagh on the dating app Bumble in August 2022. He worked part-time at the Belfast Telegraph as an audience editor, and he also worked as a YouTuber who reviewed things related to gaming, like toys and merch. His channel was called Vote Saxon 07. The pair enjoyed playing mini golf and bowling. They bonded over their shared hobbies, and after dating for 3 months, Natalie told Stephen that she was pregnant. And from there, they discussed moving in together and spending Christmas with Natalie's family. And Stephen seemed happy at the news. It looked like they were going to try to make this unexpected turn of events work for their new family. But it turned out the two had very different personalities. And before long, cracks would appear within the relationship. According to Connor McCauley at RTE, The picture of Natalie McNally that emerged from the trial of the man accused of her murder was of a modern, self-reliant young woman who was frank and forthright. Stephen McCullagh, her boyfriend and father of her unborn child, appeared to favour people he could bend to his will, something she was not. By December 2022, McCullagh and McNally had begun to argue, which is not a good sign. She'd discovered he had a violent temper and that he wasn't someone to be trusted. So she'd begun talking to her ex again, almost daily. Could it be possible that she was even thinking he might be the better choice between the two men? Or was it that she simply wasn't ready to settle down and was happy looking after herself? Because it's been alleged in the media that Natalie hadn't made up her mind yet of whether she would in fact stay with McCullagh at all. She wrote to a friend who asked if she planned to break up with him. She said, quote, "I wouldn't do it before Christmas. That would be mean. I will see how I feel in the new year. I'll make no rash decisions." She also wrote, "There is no point in acting like happy families if it's not what I want. I like my independence, so right now I'm doing my own thing. I'm not rushing into this family setup if it's not what I want." It would appear that Stephen McCullagh had his suspicions that Natalie wasn't in it for the long haul, and his jealous revenge would put him behind bars, because what he did next was truly heinous. Over the course of the 13th and 14th of December 2022, Stephen McCullagh recorded a fake live stream. It went for 6 hours. And a few days later, on the 18th of December, he announced to his subscribers that he would be going live that night from 6 p.m. In a diabolical twist, he even messaged Natalie in the lead up to his live stream. And he said, "I'm away to stream the night away. Wish me luck." She replied, "Good luck. I might have a peek at your live stream later." And Natalie actually logged on to YouTube at 8:24 p.m. to tune in, not realising that the so-called live stream was a pre-recorded ruse. So how did McCullagh get away with live streaming without communicating with his viewers? Because if you've ever watched a live stream, you take part in live commenting and the live streamer comments back. Well, he said during the video that there was a technical issue and that he wasn't able to interact with viewers on that night. I don't know how that makes sense, but he made it work. He also made use of the fake live stream in other ways to mark the current timeline of the night that it was to be played. For example, he talked about the work week coming up. He talked about it being a Sunday night. He also said Christmas was exactly 1 week away. But what he was doing in reality was so much worse. Stephen McCullagh took public transport to travel to Natalie McNally's house while his live stream played at home. Wearing a winter coat and face mask, he avoided driving because the automatic number plate recognition cameras may have seen him on the road. From Logan Town Centre, he walked 1.5 miles to Natalie's house. His phone was turned off for the entire time. He carried a bag full of clean clothes and a wig to change into after the crime was committed, and he left the house having beaten Natalie, stabbing her in the neck and hitting her in the head with a heavy object. Finally, he strangled her to death. Around the time of her death, the fake live stream showed an image for 4 seconds. It was a poster for the James Bond movie, No Time to Die. And I'll come back to that later. Changing into his disguise, he left the house and headed for home. When he got there, he deleted the video file from his computer and recycle bin of that fake live stream. At 2 a.m, he put something in his outside bin, which was to be collected the following morning. I don't think whatever he put out there was ever tracked down because the rubbish was taken away. But could it have been the blood-soaked clothes that he had been wearing that night when he killed Natalie? But let's rewind a couple of hours. Stephen McCullagh ran into a couple of challenges on the way home from the crime scene that threw his plan into chaos. Because apparently, getting home from the crime scene wasn't as easy as it sounded in his initial plan. Early the previous day, McCullagh had Googled the bus times from his place to Natalie's while Natalie was with him on the morning of Sunday, 18th of December. She wasn't going to spend the day with him because she wanted to go watch the World Cup final on TV with her family. So around midday, CCTV caught her leaving McCullagh's place and him waving her off. Now, McCullagh planned to get the train back from her house late that night, but he missed the train, meaning that his plan had fallen through and that now he had to start making it up as he went along. And that's where things start to get a bit ridiculous. He got a taxi that was parked outside the pub and he planned to get the driver to drop him off in his hometown of Lisbon, in town, not at his house. But when he got into the taxi, he found that he didn't have enough cash to get there. His cash was at home. So he had the cab driver take him right to his home address where he went in to get some more money. This took place at 11:13 p.m. He now had a witness to the fact that he wasn't at home all night. After the murder, Stephen McCullagh began the second part of his plan, and that was finding Natalie's body and then framing her ex-boyfriend for her murder. At around 10 p.m. the following night, McCullagh made a frantic call to emergency services. He explained that he had checked in on Natalie after she didn't return his calls. And in the 999 phone call, he said, "Please come as soon as you can. She's cold. There's blood everywhere." When instructed to perform CPR, he told the operator she's pregnant. When the operator asked him how far along she was, he said, "I think it's 15. We have a scan tomorrow." After making that call, he then called a close friend from the crime scene, pretending to be distraught at what he'd found. Natalie's brutalised body was found inside the house, face down in a dog bowl. Now that's a clear message to me regarding McCullagh's views towards women, because his past with women wasn't a success story. His previous relationship a couple of years earlier had ended badly, with him allegedly violently assaulting the woman. After the discovery of Natalie McNally's body, police arrested Stephen McCullagh. But when he said he'd been live streaming the previous night, they let him go because there was no way he could be in two places at once. Or was there? Stephen McCullagh appeared at Natalie's wake on Christmas Day looking distraught. He was even allowed time to sit with her casket alone. Also, he one day accidentally left his phone at Natalie's parents' house and came back for it 40 minutes later. The whole time he'd left it there, it had been recording because he wanted to know if anyone within the family suspected him. He told people that he believed Natalie's ex-boyfriend had done it. He said that this man had been hassling Natalie and that she had been upset by him. That person was arrested as a suspect, but his story also checked out and he was released. Meanwhile, investigators still suspected that something was not right. So they seized Stephen McCullagh's computers and had them examined, revealing the shocking truth. There had been no live stream at all, and here's one reason they knew why. Remember that during the so-called live stream, that James Bond movie poster appeared randomly for 4 seconds? Well, Stephen explained that by saying that he had dropped his game controller onto his keyboard, which depressed a hotkey, sending the video to a link to that image, which is so random and weird. But the cybercrime analysis of the computer showed that no keys on that keyboard had been touched that night, thus proving that the video had been pre-recorded. So after that, McCullagh was again arrested on the 31st of January 2023, and this time it was for good, although he still maintained his innocence. When confronted with the cybercrime analysis of the so-called live stream, McCullagh said he had played a pre-recorded live stream, but he had passed out drunk that night on the sofa while it played. And why did he do this? Well, he said he wasn't allowed to drink while Natalie was pregnant, and he didn't want her to know that he'd been drinking. So he played the fake live stream so that he could get drunk. It was around this time that Stephen McCullagh stopped cooperating with police. He said that he was being very badly treated by them because they had strip searched him and put him in a cold cell. But he still stuck to his story that Natalie's ex had killed her in a fit of jealousy. To make his plan more believable, he had supposed emotional outbursts in front of Natalie's family, and he pretended to keep checking the popularity of her case in the media out of concern that it was falling away from the public eye. Having only met Stephen a small handful of times, Natalie's family had nothing to base his claims on. But if they did have doubts, they were not unfounded, because Stephen McCullagh was not a good guy in any sense of the word. At the trial, the jury heard evidence that McCullagh had been a controlling partner to previous girlfriends, with one former girlfriend testifying that he had slapped and punched her. She also said that he had secretly recorded her therapy session after they had unfortunately lost a pregnancy. This tells me that this guy is not only possessive, but also vastly lacking in self-esteem, so that he feels that he has to resort to violence in order to keep a woman. At trial, prosecutors showed the jury CCTV footage of McCullagh taking a 35-minute bus journey in a jacket with a hood, face mask, a bag, and black gloves, beneath which yellow gloves were visible. Prosecutors already had proof that he had taken a taxi back to Lisbon wearing different clothes. So put the two and two together, it doesn't make sense. The 5-week trial at Belfast Crown Court gripped and horrified Northern Ireland. The 12 members of the jury were also played sections of the live stream, as well as the CCTV footage. Crown Barrister Charles McCranor, KC, noted that Stephen McCullagh had, quote, lied and lied again, and used the call to emergency service as an act that was part of his plan to do the murder and get away with it. The jury took just over 2 hours to reach its guilty verdict. That tells me that there wasn't a lot in his favour at the trial. Following the jury's verdict, Justice Kinney said, quote, Stephen McCullagh, you have been convicted of the murder of Natalie McNally, and for that offence, I impose a sentence of life imprisonment on you. Now, a tariff hearing is scheduled for May, and what that means is that he will be informed of the minimum number of years that he must serve before he becomes eligible for parole. At no point during the trial did McCullagh take the stand. He never gave an explanation of why he murdered Natalie McNally. Speaking outside the court after the decision, Natalie's brother Declan said, as Natalie receives justice today, our hearts go out to all the victims of violence against women and girls. Our hope is that all the victims and families get their day in court and the justice they deserve. Violence against women and girls is the shame of our society. We must do everything possible to end it. Natalie, you were an inspirational person. Having you in our lives was the greatest joy we will ever have. You would have been an amazing mother to baby Dean, and we will love you forever and hope you can now rest easy.